Great. So that's checking the box. Juan, what did you think of the article?
I found it pretty interesting, like this idea of creating a system of systems, as I remember,
Mm-hmm.
and something I didn't quite get, but it struck me as something important that the paper mentioned was that they were trying to something to develop a theory that wasn't general enough, so it doesn't lose content, but that isn't specific enough, so that it loses meaning. Something
Mm-hmm.
like that's what I remember, but I didn't quite get the idea of what it means to lose content and to lose meaning.
Mm-hmm. Well, so how did you perceive how did you understand this? Because he makes like scales of knowledge, yeah,
Hmm.
and he connects this with the scientific disciplines, yeah.
Mhm.
So what he does is to divide it more or less in disciplines from small particles or smaller elements to bigger and bigger ones, more or less.
Hmm.
And so, what is the? But that's the focus of the article, in my perspective, is on the scientific disciplines that are looking for these that study these different scales. Is that how you saw it also? Hey, how's it?
Mm.
Yes,
Mm.
that I remember a part where it was talking about the connection between disciplines, scientific disciplines.
Mm-hmm. So, so if you think about if you if you think about physical chemistry, so it's particles, and then you scale up to like atoms, and then again you scale up to molecules, and then again you scale up to cells, living cells, and then you scale up to eukaryotes. So that's that's the combined cells, and then again up to organisms. And so, what is and from organisms to social structures? So it's like social behavior between animals or plants or ecosystems or social organizations of people. I think there's one beyond that. So what is between these scales? So how do you get from one scale to the other? I mean, obviously in the article the focus is on the scientific discipline, but he says that the systems they are focusing on or they are researching, something is happening between those scales of systems. Can you reflect on that?
I think obviously there is a natural order about this all these systems.
Mm-hmm.
There is an order about the particle systems, cells, and so on. But I think Juan, all these subsystems are related to each other, or not?
Mm-hmm. How?
I don't know. I don't know how, but I think.
Come on, I had high hopes for you. I thought you're going to solve the question to life and the universe and everything. What about you, Juan? Can you? What is your? So can you just? What's happening between those scales?
Like, what is the thing that connects each level to the next level? That's what you're asking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm, I think it's like you say, you have to, maybe we as humans need to develop some explanation to divide those categories so that we can make a clear distinction between those levels,
Mm-hmm.
or to maybe develop a theory that will explain those levels like in a spectrum, so the limits between each level will actually be more diffuse,
Mm-hmm.
is recognizable.
Mm-hmm.
So
But
for example,
mm-hmm.
well, let's say between cells and organisms we can define the distinction between one another, because a cell is a compartment and organism is a combination of those compartments.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that in that case it could be easy to make the distinction between one level and another.
And what about the particles and a molecule then?
In that case, we made the distinction that is that we have, well, subatomic particles and atoms and molecules, um, but I don't know, in some way they all depend on each other on the previous level.
Mm-hmm. And so, and if you consider like a group of people or a social institution, like a ministry or a company or something like that, would that be in principle comparable to the atoms in a molecule? In not in a chemical way, but in a systems perspective.
In systems, what does it mean to be comparable in a systems way? Like each, like how they interact, that each part is replaceable, or what does it mean?
Yeah, so they interact because there is a kind of or caused by and because there is a coherence between them. So in some whatever way, I mean, so the molecules or the atoms in a body of an organism, there is not written in them how they form that organism, while yet they do. You see the point?
Mm-hmm.
So the atoms in my body, they make my body, but it's not in the atoms to do that. So we can make one step in between, say, okay, these atoms form cells or molecules and cells, and the cells make the body, okay. But also it's not written in the prescribed in the atoms how they should make either a molecule or a cell. And so I think that is the defining element, and they cohere into this organism. Yeah, so there is coherence without it being prescribed in the constituent elements at each scale. So this is the case for particles to atoms, from atoms to molecules, from molecules to cells, and so forth and so on, and from people or other organisms into a social system. And so that is why I think this, from my perspective, I've suggested this article because I think that's really very interesting. Because I think those are, so the common denominator is that there is a group of something forming a new unity, something that behaves like a new unity. And so all these scientific disciplines, they focus on one of those, traditional ways to focus on either subatomic particles, or atoms or molecules, chemical physics, or the physics, large in a statistical way, or organisms like in biology, or on an ecological, but not the in between. So now, how do you get from one to the other?
Okay.
And so that is the idea that I find. That's why I find it an important thing.
And what happens between those systems or disciplines? What is in between them? The bridge, a connection.
What you tell me? You know about complex systems, yeah? So maybe you can use the kind of definition or description. It's not very well defined. Well, it's ambiguous. There's many definitions.
Maybe
so starting from complex systems, how would you explain this?
Maybe information, communication. Maybe a communication, like a feedback between one system and another. Maybe communication, a transferation of information, information translation. Communication.
Okay, yeah, that's an element. I believe so. But it doesn't tell the whole story, because something is shaped or formed from nothing, because there's this swarm of molecules that start to cohere and self-organize. I think that's an important one, into a new unity that has then a new kind of identity. So from the molecules, we now have cells, which have an entirely different identity, and so I think that's an important element, and that is called, I think, emergence in complex system science. So it's like all these interacting agents that find one another in their interactions, start to cohere. Some are repelled, unstable, they leave. When it's stable, they stick. And then together they do show behavior that's different from the individual behaviors of the lower scale.
I see more like I see more macro.
Okay.
More macro. If we see the planet, we see that what happens in one continent, maybe in the Amazonas, in South America, in the Amazonas, affects other part of the planet. For example, in Africa.
Yes.
That is why this article reminds me the Netflix series. Because I don't know if you see it, because this series talk about a group of astronauts who see the planet from this stratosphere. I think in the space, and see the planet and see how all the systems, the natural systems, interact one each other, and what happens, and we don't see that that kind of movements as earth movements and ecosystems, because we live here, we don't see that, but
because we are part of it. Yeah,
we are part of this. Yeah, and because the astronauts see from above, from very up, very high altitude, they see how the system interacts one each other, and what happens in the Amazonas affects the thing what happened in Africa.
Yes.
And for example, what happened in the Africa, in the desert, all the storm in Africa affect the rivers in the Amazonas.
Yeah.
And that is how the system interacts, and this kind of interactions or system interactions exist in the macro and the micro systems.
Yeah. So that's Would it be? Do you know the Gaia theory? Gaia.
Earth,
I think
it's literally like a Gaia is like a other a human being. Oh, no, Gaia is like a. This is the theory, no?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
The Gaia.
Yeah. So Gaia theory. I think that's very much connected to what you refer to. That Earth is in a way, it's like an organism with organs or parts.
It's a living form,
it's a living organism.
Yeah.
Well, what will be okay? So yeah, that I like that. What is the problem of that? With such a theory that Earth is an organism.
It's a problem because we, like a part of this living thing, we don't see the change, and we cannot see the problems that we have, like a climate change, the biodiversity, and other things.
Yeah, so it's a holistic theory also. So that is similar to the general systems theories, holistic, which I like a lot. But there's another problem with it. So how can you think of it? Any living organism is open, thermodynamically open.
How open?
Thermodynamically, but Earth is in a vacuum.
It's not close. It's every how do you say every external pattern affect the Earth.
Yeah. So there's no competition. There's no real. I mean, the environment. The only input is sunlight, and there's nothing else coming from outside. So there's no like any ecosystem or any living organism needs an environment to compete with, to co-evolve with. Okay, so there is some theoretically is not complete yet, but the approach and the attitude to help think holistically and to get rid of the scientific discipline boundaries between disciplines. That is also very helpful in Gaia theory and in general systems theory. Yeah. So, what do you think, Juan, about this?
So, I think what I get is that we could get rid of the distinctions of the levels, or understand how you go from one level to another when you understand the phenomenon of emergence. Like how, from, like you said, individuals who have a certain behavior organized in a way that produces another individual in another level.
Yes.
But with different behavior. Now, I find it pretty interesting, and I would think that, what comes to my mind when talking about emergence, it could be, like said, like maybe a random event, but that has some kind of parameter behind it that produces that organization. So I think Tomas yesterday did it was a presentation about these systems, but he was talking about adaptive systems. But I remember about this emergence and also feedback.
Yeah.
And also two other components. But I think this idea of emergence and feedback is interesting because, well, if you put, for example, a system that we as humans have created and we have knowledge about, are computers that have the smallest component of a computer, which is a transistor.
Mm-hmm.
By itself, it's just a logical gate that makes electricity go through.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that. But the complexity, say, starts to pile up.
Mm-hmm.
You go to another level when you combine a lot of transistors to make, let's say, a processing unit or a logical unit or a memory unit
Mm-hmm.
that have their specific function. But let's say that emergence is produced by us.
Mm-hmm.
The feedback that we get from the system is, or we give the system is, we want the system to do a certain task. So, for example, the memory unit, we want it to store some values. The
Mm-hmm.
logic unit, we want it to well have certain cycles or tasks to do, and then we combine them in other ways to make higher level organisms, we could say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so how does self-organization fit into that picture?
But in the case of computers, it still doesn't have, the computer itself doesn't have self-organization.
Mm-hmm.
But in the case of, let's say, living organisms, like you said, that would be the enigma. Like, how does an organism organize itself? How these atoms come together and organize themselves in a way that produce another system with different behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And and like I said, that I wouldn't know how to answer that question. That maybe it's just randomness, that particles just start to interact and try things, and then in some way they just find
Mm-hmm.
a state that makes them work together in
It's like a stable state.
like a stable state.
So it's like a selection procedure. So there's time, there's enough time to do it, and they just meet randomly, and then it sort of sticks and stable, and then another one meets and is not stable, so it is repelled. So it's an attractor or a repeller, and it heaps up and it heaps up, and then all of a sudden there's a more complex structure that has new behavior, and that is very important. I believe is like part of the sort of definition of emergence is that it's irreducible. So the behavior of the new unity is not reducible to the behaviors of the part of the elements that constitute it. And so you cannot explain the behavior of a cell from the behavior of molecules.
You can.
Amen.
You can explain the behavior of, like I say, of the cell by explaining the behavior of a single atom. Like you can't just explain once it's combined with other atoms. Then you have like an idea of why.
Yeah, but I believe that there is a limit to the predictability of the behavior of a group of things if you put them together in that way. So it is not possible, even if you have all the information about the particles or the constituent elements of whatever system, to predict how it will behave as a unity. That is the essence, I think, of emergent behavior.
That you can't predict how the group will behave.
Yeah, because otherwise, if I need for my faculty, I need a new secretary, I would go to quantum mechanics and I have all the figures, and it will tell me in some day, if I have all the information, which secretary I need to hire, to make a ridiculous example, of course. You see, so there is no relation between these scales, and so yeah. So well, if you believe in reductionism, so you go down and down and down, and you know all the details at the smallest scales. Now you can go back up and make predictions about the higher scales. That is the traditional, a little bit old-fashioned way of looking at science. And I think this article is written in 1956, and it's one of the first opposing views, which says it's not possible because there is a clear distinction between them, which we now know is emergence, and it's all over the place. But it's not. It's an inconvenient truth that we cannot predict these outcomes always.
Yes. So I remember.
So now what do we do? It's a big problem. Philip, you're the one to give the.
I think maybe with the advantage of the computer science, maybe we can simulate. But Juan said that the molecules interact one each other randomly. But are this interaction real randomly, or they have some seed or something who moves it? And if you see that seed, can you predict that action or simulate or replicate the action? Maybe with computers.
Yes, it's possible. It's because that's, I think, in agent-based modeling is what you do. You generate agents in your using software like NetLogo or something, and then you try to have them interact and see what pops up from it, emerges from that. Yeah. But there's also maybe you're aware of that, natural computation. So that's kind of a theory that whenever there's a system which coheres for some reason, otherwise you couldn't define it as a system, so there's some coherent behavior, then it acts as a computer to calculate its next state. So it's computing its way forward to maintain itself. Yeah, that's a big.
I don't know. A big question.
Big question, yeah. So now is a cloud of gas or something, which then you treat as a computer, because it's making these. It's constantly regenerating itself because of the changing positions, it has a different shape and a different behavior as a cloud of gas, and so it's computing its next states as it goes. Yeah, but that's not very. You know who wrote about that? Stephen Wolfram. He made the Wolfram Alpha.
Wolfram.
Yeah.
Oh.
Steve
Wolfram.
It's very, very interesting. I really like that. His book is online. You can just you go to it.
Stevie Wonder? No.
Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder. Stephen Wolfram. Stephen. Wolfram. It's British.
Yeah. He's a smart guy.
A New Kind of Science. It's a book.
Yeah, you can read it online for free. It's a big book.
New Kind of Science. Automata. It's a big book. It's a big book.
It's about 1,400 pages or something. It's a lot. 1,200.
Automata computationals.
Yeah.
New kind of science.
Yeah. So what he tries to show is how emergence or generating complex behavior. So if it's a complex system, there's interaction between agents, but there's some level of novelty, but there's also some level of order. And he tries to figure out in this book what is the smallest number of elements and rules per agent and strategies. So that it's like spin glass, you know this? It's like next neighbor kind of. So you look to your neighbors to decide on your own state, and then you compare, and then you go to the next state based on that. And he's looking for the smallest number of smallest conditions to make this complex behavior. And
when you talk about a state and a new state, what are you talking? The state is like a state of matter.
Yeah, he generalizes it to like physical systems as well, but okay, he tries to make a general theory for complex systems, but he uses an abstract method to do that. So he uses cellular automata. You know this? It's like
you speak like a state, and then you talk about another state.
Yeah. So let's say there's a row of cells, and they are black or white.
Okay.
And each cell has it's like a rows, all these cells in a row, and then they can decide if if one neighbor is white and the other one is also white, but I'm black, then my next state is also black. But if the one is black and the other is white, and my state is black, then my next state is white, or it is unchanged. So it is whatever it used to be in the last state. But they all have this. So now it's like resonating through the system. You see what's happening? So at each new row, it generates a new row, and then it again does the same thing. So it looks right and to itself, and then it makes the next one. But they all do this ongoing, and that creates these structures. You know, this pyramid kind of shapes. You know that what it looks like.
It's like there is rules that control the state of.
Yeah, but it depends on the neighbors, and you can
depends on the neighbor.
Yeah. So that's in a very abstract way, very similar to the system that we are discussing. Like any complex system, structurally complex. So how does it relate to its neighbors? But then the behavior is what he's trying to show is that the behavior is also complex. So it's not just random. It's not only like a flat line, so it just freezes. But there's a little bit of order and a little bit of novelty in it. And that's very interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm. I remember. Did you know Cesar Hidalgo?
No, I don't think so.
Cesar Hidalgo makes a book. Cesar. It's a Chilean. It's Chilean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know him. I've heard of him. Yeah.
He wrote a book called.
He's a biologist, yeah.
It's physics.
Oh. Yeah, I know that one. I've seen it, but I've never read it.
I don't know the name in English. It's
El triunfo de la información.
El triunfo de la información in Spanish.
So
in English, it have another name, but to talk about the complex systems, they have a group. So he have a group of in the MIT and make a page maybe do you know, or do you use it in your work?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the group make a how do you say, it's economic complexity observatory, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have heard of him.
Economic complex observatory. The Observatory of Economic Complexity.
Yeah, economics is terrible. That's very.
Yeah, and talk about what you're saying. All the systems interact with each other and make states.
Yeah.
But use that the same theory applied to economic and countries, regions.
Yeah.
How the country interact with each other.
Yeah.
And you can make predictions.
Yeah, but they never work. Yeah. No. What they say, well, it's a half joke, but in economics it's very difficult to make a good decision, make a good prediction, because it's as soon as people know that you are looking at them, they are starting to behave differently, and so that's typical. It's the tragedy of the social sciences. That's very, but also because of the emergent properties of many of such systems. It's not reducible, so you know what the individual will do, but it will not tell you statistically how the whole system will behave. It will sort of assume a life of its own, you could say. You see, so it will be a little bit difficult. But that's also, yeah. So I think the main message, I would say, is that it's very positive to have a holistic view, to try to include, to see a system in an environment in some way, and then but to also see on the other side what is the particles making up this system and how it is coherent into this larger system, and to flip from that, so to look at the individual particles or elements, and then to flip to the whole system and have it or observe it with its own behavior as a system, as a whole.
But when do you study the system theory? You study the system like a one system, or one system connected to each other.
In my PhD, you mean? Or, yeah. Well, I was looking exactly at this small gray area. So what happens on that very small thing? So one day the firm comes into existence. Why? You know what happens? Because all the stakeholders in a company, they're all opposing. So the shareholder wants to make more money, and he wants low cost, and then the employees want better salary and to work less, and then the customer wants low prices and good quality and so forth. So it's opposing. Why do they find each other in the company? And then you see, so they started one day, and then it exists for a while. People come and go, you know, they go on retirement, and they come new recruits and whatever, and then it stops. Why does it stop at some point? So that's how I try to, in a sort of slow motion, try to make all the small parts. But you cannot predict the behavior of the firm from the behavior of the people inside it only. That was what I learned from it. Yeah.
You cannot predict the behavior of the people.
Yeah, you have to read my thesis. You promised me that, huh?
Yeah,
I'm joking. Just little bits of it. It's a big book. So, Juan, final word to you. So, what do we do?
I think I was trying to find a video that I watched some time ago that was titled "The Math's Fundamental Flaw," and it was pretty interesting because it also talked about this. Well, it mentioned this idea that we can't, or at least with what we know about models, is what we can predict how a system will behave in the future. Because it said that mathematicians were trying to solve this problem, that if mathematics was complete, consistent, and decidable. And well, I don't remember what complete and consistent was exactly, but I remember that decidable, they used this example of the game of life that I think we talked about sometime in the past. And it
But
said
that-
that
But that would make it deterministic, yeah. So you know the data, the initial conditions, you know all the rules, and then if it's complete, you know everything. If it's decidable, now you can know based on the rules what will happen next.
that's the idea. But
That's the idea, yeah. But so
in some way, yeah, it's that there are simple rules. Like
yeah.
each square has to look at its neighbor and change its states according
Yeah,
to
yeah.
that
So
rule.
what he proved is that this is not the case. Well, it was not him came up with the idea, but chaos theory tells you that you have deterministic rules, and then you cannot know what the outcome will be of even a deterministic system with all the initial conditions known. You cannot know.
It's like a paradoxical problem. Like you know that you
Yeah.
know everything you need to know, but you can't predict how it would be the outcome.
Yeah, that's correct. Do you know this? If you look at have a look at this at the Wikipedia logistic map. There's an example that tells you in a very simple way. It's graphical what the idea is. And so now we know that it is not possible to predict everything very far. What you can do is take the direction. So there is this system, you know the rules, you know the initial conditions, and now you know it's going this way for the next future. And at that point, you know it'll go this way for a little bit. So the general direction, maybe in some cases you can predict. Yeah, terrible, eh? Terrible.
Yes,
It's a shame. Yeah.
I think that's I would say that's the enjoyable part of science.
Yeah. So now you don't know. There's no doubt. There's an ocean of work ahead. So yeah, that's good. Yeah. Okay, guys, listen. I've got to go. What do you think of the meeting? Or is it okay?
Yes, it's pretty interesting knowing this and learning about general systems theory.
Good. Would you be happy to propose an article for next week?
Yes.
Okay. If at all possible, with some complexity science or agent-based stuff or emergence or self-organization, something in that area, possible?
Okay. Complexity science, emergence.
Yeah, so
Yes. Maybe we can propose articles and then decide for one.
yeah, that'll be good. That'll be good. Yeah. So next week, be prepared, because I'm going to ask you to take each other's perspectives. So take a simple article, because it will be bloody difficult. So I'll be the mathematician. You'll be Juan will be in engineering, And Philippe, you are going to be the economist.
Interesting.
No, I'm joking. No, but it's serious. Because that's I think the final bit that we need to do in a multidisciplinary environment. So if we're talking to other sciences, we need to know a little bit and try to take the perspective of other scientists as well. Making use of complexity science. That's why I'm repeating that kind of thing. Because there we can use the general systems to take different perspectives, because it's always about more than one, or actually more than three constituent elements that as a group make a new unity. Whether it's in economics, whether it's in biology, whether it's in whatever, mathematics, it's always that new behavior emerges. Amen.
Okay.
I thought it was enjoyable. It was good. I really like your English. You're perfectly understandable. So now we can slowly move on to scientific topics. But this exercise we have to do next week.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Cheers. Ciao.
Okay, goodbye.
Have a nice day.
See you
Nice
next
day
week.
to you also. See you next week. And
Bye.